Just a little over 50 years ago, Boston artist, muralist, and community activist Dana C. Chandler Jr. challenged the Museum of Fine Arts to include Black artists in the museum's collections and exhibitions and to provide financial support to Black artists. Chandler's efforts led the MFA to stage an exhibition featuring 70 African American artists, including Chandler's portrait of Black Panther Party Chairman Bobby Seale. Now in 2021, the MFA, along with the Museum of Modern Art in New York and Chandler, are collaborating on another landmark exhibit called Black Power in Print. And joining us now from New Mexico is artist Dana C. Chandler, and in Maryland, his daughter and Representative Donna Chandler. Welcome to you both. Dana, it's a pleasure to see you.
Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Good to see you too.
So Dana, tell us more about the challenge that you issued to the MFA 50 years ago.
Well, I had been going into the museum since I was 7 years old. And on one occasion when I went to the museum, I saw one of the curators of painting there, and I said to him, "Where's the Black art?" And he told me that when Black artists got to the level where their work was at museum level, that the work would be there. And he looked at me and said, "If ever." And I just said to myself, well, I'm going to make sure there's a show here very soon. And he just looked at me and laughed. I said, "You won't be laughing long." And that's how all of that came about.
And we have an image of that document. I think the MFA has referred to it as a manifesto. What's the title of that document? Do you recall?
I'm trying to think of the words. Donna, you know the name.
Donna?
So
it's a proposal to eradicate essentially institutional racism at the Museum of Fine Arts.
I'm sure it must have been quite a revolutionary piece of writing when the MFA received it so many years ago. So, Dana, were you surprised when they responded by mounting that exhibit in 1970 called Afro-American Artists, New York and Boston?
Not even a little bit, because I was determined it was going to happen. And I had a friend whose name was George Seabolt, the owner of the company that makes deviled eggs, and he was on the board. And he was just fine with all of this occurring. And so it just worked out fine.
Now,
the challenge that they had...
Go ahead, Dana, I'm sorry.
The challenge that they had was that they had an exhibition in the galleries that the show should go in that was not coming because it was an Egyptian exhibition, and the Egyptians told the museum, "We're not sending it because we think they'll steal it." Which, by the way, they had been doing for some time.
I think it's fair to say, Dana, that many in Boston's very conservative institutions probably weren't ready for your approach and your activism at that time. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yes, they were not ready at all.
Donna, your father's activism in the arts is legendary in Boston, his time with Northeastern University. And tell us more about how the online exhibit that we now see at the MFA called Black Power in Print came together.
It was a collaboration between my father, the museum, and I to put the elements of that era, specifically around the Black Panther movement and the Black Power movement, online for everyone to see, for educational purposes primarily, but to help people understand how it was that those then young people made institutions hear them. One of the segments earlier talks about how Black men wanted to be seen. The goal was for Black artists to be seen. And it's very important for younger people who tend to be more online than in person to be able to learn about that history and what preceded them. There was a movement before Black Lives Matter.
We're looking at, we just saw a piece that your dad did with the fist pushing through, and then there's another very classic piece relating specifically to the Black Power movement, Fred Hampton's Door?
Yes.
Yes. Tell us about that, Dana.
Well, I was very, very upset when I found out that Fred Hampton had been murdered by the Chicago police in collaboration with the city's attorney. And so I decided I needed to do something that would memorialize him for all time. And I thought about the idea of a piece with bullet holes in it, which that piece was at the World's Fair that year. I think it was 1967 or something. Somebody will correct that. But that piece was stolen from the World's Fair show. So I said to myself, okay, fine. I said, I will find something that you won't be able to steal as easily. So at that time, as you remember, Karen, they were tearing up the Black community, just knocking buildings down and leaving the result of the knocking buildings down all over the area. So I went to a big pile of some former home and saw a door, took the door in my studio, did the appropriate things to it, set it on some kind of pedestal so it would stand alone as a piece of sculpture.
And it's quite a collectible piece right now. You know, Dana, your activism is legendary. Donna, if you could just reflect, daughter of Roxbury, artist Akua Holmes now has an exhibit up at the MFA called Paper Stories, Layered Dreams. It's up at the MFA through January 23rd. Certainly a through line from Dana Chandler to Akua Holmes and the work that your father did decades ago. If you just reflect on that for us.
I'm sorry, reflect on specifically
having Akua, a daughter of Roxbury, now have her exhibit up at the MFA.
I am so excited for Akua. I have a bit of artistic talent, and it tends to be, my work is similar to Akua's. So to see hers in the museum is very exciting.
Okay.
I of course grew up with Akua. She's not that much, she's around my age. So seeing her go from a young woman to a flourishing artist
it's quite something.
Yes,
and many thanks to Dana Chandler and to you, Donna Chandler, for joining us today and for
glad to be here,
telling us all about this wonderful history. And thanks to you for watching, everyone. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Cityline 5, and you can follow me on Twitter at Karen Holmes Ward. Have a good afternoon. Stay safe and be well.